Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris and Mark back on a Monday night, 9:30, asking the same question we ask every Monday night. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on, Mark. Newcastle United may be on a break, but we are still here. I promise we won't sing the national anthem, but me and Mark are here to seal it up. How are we doing, Mark?
There will be no singing at all today. Well, can't never say never, but I'll try not to.
We'll save that for when we do a big long 12-hour show like the Toon Review guys, and we'll get delirious by 4 PM and we start singing. Maybe No Woman, No Cry. We can maybe get Steve McLaren on a duet, possibly with his newfound Jamaican banter, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. But it's always good to be here on a Monday night, even though Newcastle haven't played at the weekend, which is probably why we're a lot more chirpier than we normally are. But thank you very much to everybody who's already joined us. We've got loads of you in the chat. We are live tonight, as always. So jump in the comments as we always do. It always helps the episode flow. And if you like what you see, smash subscribe, help the channel grow. We're over 8,600 subs now, Mark, which is brilliant. So we're on the way to 9,000, where you can win that absolutely brilliant retro blue McEwen shirt. It's not what I'm wearing tonight. No, I'm wearing a failed merchandise Alexander Isak shirt, because we're going to talk about him tonight, which sadly we weren't able to do because of goddamn copyright. But I'll still wear it anyway because it's comfortable and it looks good. So we're going to get stuck right into this, Mark. There's only one place to start, really, international mags, because we have had an absolute corker of an international break. Normally, we shit our pants when these things happen, fearing a ligament injury or some shit like that. But the boys are flying, are they not, mate?
They are, but just please no jinx on anything for international.
Touchwood. Sorry.
There are still games to go, man. Just chill.
Ever the pessimist, Mark.
Look, it's been. I think with the way that the season started for Newcastle, I think it's just there are players that have looked slightly short. Isak, one of them, dare I say. I just think he's looked a little bit short. And I know the opposition in Azerbaijan and Estonia aren't particularly great, but he has looked back on it. And, for, I think, 30, 40 minutes as well, Gordon looked sharp for England. I think they completely took their foot off the gas second half. But he looked sort of back at it. He did look to tire a little bit, which is, again, he's looked like that for playing for Newcastle as well. It's slightly worrying to see. But the moment he gets in the tank, the better. He had a really limited pre-season, so the first few games have kind of been getting himself back to full match fitness again. So, and then there's I think Lewis Hall's playing tonight. England winning, I think it's 4-1 still. It played pretty solidly. Was it Sanusi was playing for the younger side as well?
A nice little goal, tucked inside, bottom corner.
Yeah, lovely little goal. So it's all looked pretty rosy. I think Dubravka got a clean sheet as well, didn't he? Bruno won. So yeah, it's everything's looked up so far. Touch wood that nobody picks up a knock tomorrow or Wednesday, because there's still a few big ones to go.
That's going to be the first clean sheet Dubravka's had since Mrs. Dubravka washed the fucking bed linen, I'd imagine, to be fair. But fair play to him. Marcus is saying, sounds like Tonali was looking good in the game today. But speaking of Tonali, good gracious. I mean, you've left that one for me, Mark. I will gladly take it and run with that unbelievable, beautiful Italian bastard. I mean, he played brilliantly against France. Didn't look like he missed a beat. And the sexiest of back heel flicks to set them up for the equaliser. I mean, talk about a man playing with confidence. Exactly, George. Outrageous back heel assist. It was beautiful. The way he was controlling the game, the way he wanted the ball. I think people have talked about this already. He looks faster, sharper than he did when he was playing last season. And a lot of people have said it, and I didn't want to believe it about it was playing on the mind and all that. But maybe it was. Something like that is bound to throw you off your optimum levels. There's no doubt about that. But I just think he looks so good tonight. And as you say, Mark, minutes in the tank against a great team. I mean, one of my favourite clips outside of the back here was fucking knee and Mbappe in the spine. I think when he went to go for him, which was beautiful to see. Because he not only has he got the silk, he's also got the steel. And him and Bruno at full tilt is it's mouthwatering stuff, mate, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, he just looks comfortable, cultured. I think is what George has put there in the comments as well. And he, like I think I said it the other way. I think he want him straight back in as quickly as possible, because he just adds another dimension to that midfield that the team don't have, and he's certainly a much better. He has much better ability on the ball than Sean. And
speaking of Sean, that was hilarious, because it was almost like within 3 minutes of the back heel, like an Instagram post went on Sean going, working hard. Working hard. And I don't think he meant it to time it like that, but it was quite funny because everyone was like, shit, is his mate just texting him, fucking hell, have you just seen that assist? He just put, shit, working hard, I better get that up on social media so the gaffer knows I'm grafting.
Perfect. The other one I saw as well, the other thing, I can't remember who was it, whether it was you that sent us or whether it was in one of the group chats, was the Isak interview about whether he plays FPL.
I never saw
the interview had said, do you play FPL? He says no, because then I'd be more selfish when it comes to games. And he was asking whether people should captain him for Sunday, and he's like, no, he says I prefer it when people drop me and then I go and score twice. So I just thought it's a good little dig.
He does look on absolute fire. He really, really does. I mean, he's got this really good kind of partnership going with is it Goikres? I'm trying to pronounce the name right there. Yeah, Goikres. He's a phenomenal player as well, and him and Isak together. I mean, for a long time with Sweden, it was Zlatan, wasn't it? And then obviously Isak came onto the scene, but them two together. I mean, Sweden didn't qualify for the last major tournament. If them two can start clicking, I mean, Sweden could be a real dangerous side. Kulusevski in there as well. But to see the movement, the pace. That through ball, as you said there, was absolutely filthy. You got Tonali with that flick, Isak with that through ball, and his finish was brilliant too, the way he slowed it down and put it into the top corner. As you say, he's looked a bit rusty, but these minutes are going to help him, no doubt.
Definitely. That finish was great, because I love the way that he just waited for the Estonia player to run past him and then just coolly slotted it in the top of the net. It was just
brilliant.
And the same for the weekend, actually. It was just the way he rearranges his feet. In the first game against Azerbaijan, when the ball comes across him, he just rearranges his feet just to tuck it in the corners. That's a sign of a man that's hit form.
He does need a hat trick, as the guys are saying.
Yeah,
I think it is coming. I agree with you, Chris. I think it's coming. I think Wolves could be the ones put to the sword by Alexander Isak, because they'll not be happy seeing that going, fucking hell, he's banging them in away, comes back in top form. That's a dangerous player to worry about. No,
it's the one thing when you're coming up back to the league games. If you see a player who's not quite hit their stride this season, I've just seen George's comment and I've nicked yours, but apologies, I didn't see it until I said hit stride and then spotted it on the screen. I'm just stealing your lines tonight.
You're all stealing George's lines. What do you mean tonight? It's every week we steal George's lines. But George is terrible. He's a plagiarist, really is. But I think it was disappointing not to see Tino going back to England. It was disappointing not to see Tino, I think, for England. I would have liked to have seen that. I mean, Trent looked a lot better, I think, at right back. I'm not sure about these links to him to Newcastle when his contract runs out, mind you. Let us know in the comments below, everybody, what you think about Trent to Newcastle United. I'm not sure that's going to work. But I think, like you say, Gordon definitely played with a lot more freedom. I mean, it must be so frustrating, Mark, as an England fan, watch that tournament in the summer, screaming, why aren't you playing Anthony Gordon? And that weapon of him getting in behind and the balls coming through to him from the likes of Declan Rice and players like that, and you were thinking, why on earth did Southgate not use him? But some of the stuff Gordon's been saying, I mean, he's been in front of all the cameras. He's very much the kind of, that seems to be the media darling at the minute. Now Jude Bellingham isn't there, so we shouldn't Anthony Gordon there. But it doesn't sound great the way Southgate handled him by the sound of it, mate, does it? And do you think Southgate has to take a lot of responsibility for Gordon coming back a bit off rather than all the other speculation?
Maybe, but I think a lot of the players that went to the Euros and didn't play an awful lot have come back short. they've come back. They've had 3 weeks off and then had a really limited pre-season. I don't think that's helped them at all. I mean, we've said it a million times. Gordon was criminally underused in the Euros. He really was. He was one of the most electrifying players in the Premier League last season, and he barely gets a sniff. And at times where you want to stretch a game and we saw the other night, you play a through ball, 40, 50 yards from goal. There's a one-on-one sort of shot. There's only one winner. He really should have buried that chance as well that led up to the goal. Yeah. But he's in the right place. He's putting himself in those positions to make those chances. So those goals will come as well. But I just think, Southgate has to. I mean, he's got to look at it and go, again, it's another massively missed opportunity. And when you've got the players. You've had the players at your disposal to change games. It's baffling. The one I really liked the return of was just how, and it's un-Newcastle related, but was just the return of Grealish as well in that sort of 10 role where he just
he looked freedom, didn't he?
Allowed players with freedom and the midfield too. Grealish ahead of them, the front three all looked like they wanted to play again. They weren't, as one of the media outlets put the other day, it's just they'd had the handbrake taken off. They were allowed to express themselves a little bit. It's what we've been crying for the last 4 years. You're right, Malcolm. It is great to see him getting that and to get some recognition. And I hope he gets another chance again tomorrow, and he can go out and maybe get himself a goal and really give him a boost of confidence.
Yeah, just a bit on Grealish. Yeah, he did look good, but he still looks like he should work on the waltzes of the Spanish City fair. To be fair, he really does. But I have to say that. Do you think Tino would get a chance tomorrow? Do you think he might get a start, Tino, or do you think he might get off the bench?
Maybe. I think Finland aren't exactly the. I'm going to hit the highlights of it, but we tend to struggle against these teams. But I think with a little bit of creative freedom, it would open up the option for him to get forward and down an overlap as well. And be interesting to see if he plays behind Saka, what that dynamic would be like as well, because that could be a dynamic.
Nightmares, wouldn't it? The pace on that side, mate.
Exactly, and think the age that they're both at as well. That could be an England right-hand side for a while. So it's. I'd like to see some of him tomorrow, just to see how good. Maybe he's a start, because these are games they're not overly important in terms of qualification and stuff like that to a point. But I think these are the competitive games that you want to try these players in, because friendlies you're not going to see the best of them. And I think something like this we'd see a much better side of what he can cope with, especially at that level.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see him get a chance. I think he's ready, and I think it'll make him even better. Come back to Newcastle's confidence will grow even further. A couple of comments about the Keegan interview. I haven't seen that, guys, to be fair. We might watch that and do a little reaction video, because I do love a bit of KK, in all fairness, and it'd be interesting to hear what he's had to say. I don't disagree. I think the Premier League does stifle English development. I think it has done for a long time. That's 100% on the money, from Keegan, which doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Still a bit, just a slight tangent, still a bit disappointed the club haven't really honoured Keegan in any way, Mark, or made a fuss about bringing him back for a match and get the crowd to sing his name. And he seems to still be left in the background, even though he's such a influential and transitional figure at his football club. I just don't know why he's continuously left on the sidelines, mate. Any quick thoughts on that before we move on? You've opened a can here, George.
Well, we know why it happened in the previous 12
Christ,
years.
We know that, yeah,
I mean, there was no way he was ever going to get on it. And the fact that they renamed the bar from Shearer's was a telling point in that they were never going to do anything like that, especially with the way that Keegan's second tenure ended. It's one of those things that I think will come, and I think possibly as maybe either the redesign or the rebuild of the ground, if they're going to go along the lines of a stand. I don't think they do anything like that yet. I don't see the point, because if they're going to rebuild stands or they're going to move the state or whatever they're going to do, that's the point in which you then have those stands named. I wouldn't do it as an interim part. It just feels a bit of a weak gesture. But he has to be. He's got to be, because he's, the leader of that entertainers period, where it was, simply phenomenal football to watch, and he's so well loved from his time as a player, his time as a manager. They have to do something.
Do you know what would be ironic as fuck is if they name like the youth academy after him, given the fact he binned them all off? That would be the most hilarious thing you could possibly ever do. Imagine with Darren Neal's and Paul Mitchell's track record at the minute, then you never know, it might very much happen. But we'll get on to them two in a minute. So I suppose moving away from the national mags, Mark, in good shape. Are we in good shape? I mean, we'll get into the aftermath of Mitchell and his mouth in a minute. But the transfer window, piss poor, as we all know, really poor. Didn't bring in a first team player, threw all our chips into Mark Gay. He never come off, didn't have a backup plan, didn't get a right winger, sold a really exciting young right winger who looks really good for Brighton, who possibly might give us nightmares in October. Not a great window at all, not a good look by the club. Again, the response has been pretty poor from the club in many ways. But the players we just talked about, fitness and form, in particular, the big ones, Bruno, Isak, Gordon, Tonali, these kind of players. Fabian Schär's back from suspension, obviously after the international break, which is a big thing as well. Are we in good shape moving forward? And just before we answer that as well, there was a great stat that came out about the manager, and the manager's come under some criticism. We've criticised him, and I think rightly so at times. But just to maybe a little reminder about the manager before we jump into the players. Now, if you give this manager a fully fit squad, I think he's got a good chance of doing something with it. So these are the points Newcastle have accumulated since Eddie Howe became the manager. 183 points in total. Better than Chelsea, better than Villa, better than Manchester United. Ha, ha, ha. I'll say that again. Better than Manchester United. Obviously, slightly worse than Spurs, and then a bit away from the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, City, who are always contesting the title. Are we a little bit harsh sometimes towards Eddie for criticism? Or we don't go in too heavy. We do it when it's warranted. But given that points record and the players that should be at his disposal now in terms of fitness, are we in good shape moving forward, mate?
What would that total be if everybody was fit last season?
312. We would have won the league by a canter.
When you consider that part of that is the season that he comes in and nothing really happens for the first 2 months, until really the January, wasn't it? So it's an incredible start to see just how consistent they've been. And yes, there have been drop-offs in form, and yes, there have been questionable decisions, but really he's done an incredible job with a limited squad, not limited funds, because they've spent money, and the transfer window gone is one that we've done to death. But when you consider that there are still championship standard players in that squad, or in and around the club, or with their last season, and ones that the club just can't shift and move on, and I think he's done a brilliant job. And yes, we'll always question, we'll always look at decisions that are made and say you could have done better. I believe, I don't blow my trumpet of saying, I know better than the manager, and we'll always get grief for that. But you're allowed to have that opinion as a football fan. And yeah, there are mistakes along the way, and I think everybody can agree that. But he's done an incredible job, and I think he deserves the time with the squad back to full strength. He deserves the time. We'll see what happens now, and I think he's probably on a little bit under a little bit more pressure, given the position that Newcastle finished last season, and the will to really be in those European places. But that stat is brilliant. To only be a couple of points behind, perennial fourth place team Spurs, ahead of Manchester United, who are the biggest club in the world apparently, and you know what I mean, and obviously ahead of Chelsea, who've spent 45 billion on players over the last 6 weeks. So I think he's done a great job, and given the tools, and I think he can step up a level. I believe that. I always said that I think he would have time this season, and the window would be a telling one as to who we could bring in and fuck that up. But the players that are coming back with Tonali back, with Botman heading back to fitness, hopefully by the end of the year for them, then I think that those are huge. And if he can keep a fitter squad, then I think he can get Newcastle back into that top four shout. It's tough, but there's no reason why you can't be challenging there.
Yeah, I mean, as Cushy says, there, it's leaving the players on the pitch. When they are spent,
Yes.
they're likely to improve on fit players on the bench. Yeah, I mean, there was loads of times Cushy as well. We criticise him for that, not using the squad, especially when we had the Champions League on our agenda. He would play, Burn and Trippier, who were in their 30s, week after week after week, and you could just see they were burning out while Hall and Livermore were kicking up the heels on the bench. It seemed to take him so long to change that, and I think he's very loyal, but he's also very stubborn to his ethos as Eddie, and I think he does struggle to change until something's gone so catastrophically wrong that he goes, "Oh shit, I need to do something about it," which he has done, but maybe a little bit later than he should have done. But I think the key to the success of us being in good shape, Mark. I mean, looking at the fixtures kind of moving forward. So we're coming back. We've obviously got Wolves away. That won't be an easy game. Then Fulham away. Then we've got Wimbledon in the cup away. And then it starts to get a bit bitty. We've got City at home. We've got Everton away with the brand new stadium on the horizon. More on that in a second. Then we've got Brighton at home, Chelsea away, Arsenal. So that it does get a little bit spiky, going into kind of November and then upwards to December. That gets really, really spiky. So the key really is keeping all these players fit and on form. Seeing Isak scoring goals and pulling off mint assists is manna from heaven for Newcastle fans, and Tonali as well, and obviously Bruno, playing and winning in the Brazilian squad. The more he does that, the more confident he'll become. But I just think that, I've just got a comment there from is it Johnny Ola, Lewis Hall with 2 assists and 21s tonight. He's got to start. I love Lewis Hall's left peg. He's brilliant. We should be attacking teams like Wolves. I totally agree with you. But obviously keeping those players fit is a big thing because we struggled last season with that. This whole thing, we'll get into Mitchell in a minute, but the whole arrival of Bonds, we've questioned whether, intensity is not our identity. It's like our weekend secret identity that we just, have a little 10-minute spell out, then fuck off back to normal of quietness. So things have definitely changed, I think, since Bonds has been installed. And I think something has been said behind the scenes about you can't play that level of intensity for 70, 80 minutes. Or whatever Eddie used to make us play at because the players were burning out. Inevitably, we're unbeaten. I think we're 5th in the table, something like that. Is that going to be the best plan moving forward? Or do you think that the intensity has to dial up a little bit more for Newcastle to be that team again, to blow teams away in the first 15, 20 minutes and get in control of games?
I think the identity is there to start quickly, to start on the front foot and press. We've seen that in every game so far. We talked about
haven't took our chances, though, is the problem. That's the issue.
And I think probably that will come. And it's one of those ones where Wolves might be in the point where everybody's hit their stride, as the comment was before. And if you can really dominate that first 15, get 1, maybe 2 ahead, and then you can release and you can let go of the pressure a little bit and just try and dominate them possession. Having a player like Tonali in midfield is going to allow you to do a lot more of that.
Really.
But yeah, that initial press, we know, we've seen it. It lasted for so long, playing 70, 80 minutes worth of high intensity football. It will work in some games when you have to do it for nearly 90 minutes. It won't in others. And they've got to learn when to go and when to not. And I think we've seen some of that so far this season. I think that's got to be the identity going forward, where it's done at the right time. So they'll press early, they'll go in stages, and when it's time for them to go, it's all in, and then the foot comes off the pedal again, and then they regroup and recharge, and then go again. And it's making sure that in those periods where they do step back and they do stop that intense press, that they're not allowing teams to create chances and get on top of them, A little bit like Bournemouth, where Bournemouth really dominated possession for huge spells, and Forest again, when Forest got the ball, they were able to dominate without creating an awful lot. But it's those periods where they've got to be really switched on, and I think we'll see a lot of that going forward, where they use it much more sparingly, but hopefully for them much more effectively.
Yeah. There is players to come back as well. I mean, I know we had a shit window. There's no doubt about that. We'll talk about the man, charged with it and who's basically come out. And not my fault in a minute. But, we've got Wilson could be coming back after the national break. He'll probably be injured 2 days later. Willock is obviously due back, which is a big one. Sorry, I had you there, Water. Willock's a big one. If Willock can get back and stay fit, Willock is such an asset to the team. Louis Miley's, I think, a few weeks away as well. Which gives you more depth in that midfield, something a little bit different than what's in there now. So, there is good players to come back in. Asala getting a goal as well. I didn't mention that. In the under-21s, and that was a great finish. That lad, that's going to do him the world of good. And if he can start getting a little minute here or there, maybe against Wimbledon, possibly the cup, we might see him. So there is potential there. There is potential for positivity in the background. But again, it's all a massive gamble mark on fitness of probably about 6 or 7 core players that have had injury problems, and amongst them, Nick Pope, massive injuries last season. He's already looked a little bit wobbly at times. Why doesn't he catch the ball anymore after that thumb injury? We've talked about that before. The parry against Spurs, was that an issue with the shoulder? There's a big concern with Pope. Obviously Tonali's just back from suspension. It's looking good so far, but how will he be a bit rusty? We don't know yet. Isak's had niggles. Wilson's made of glass. Willock seems to be made of just slightly stronger glass. So it's all still a little bit ifs and buts and coconuts, mate, isn't it? I just feel like 2 or 3 players added would have given us more security, I think, in the squad. And I think that's where we've failed.
Definitely. That's exactly what you want. You want that squad depth. You want to be able to take some of those players out and give them rest and times. And there were times last season when players were desperate for a rest or desperate to come out of games after 60, 65 minutes. And either players weren't available or the manager refused to do it. But they've got to... You mentioned Pope there. I still do worry about Nick Pope.
I do.
And I think he will be replaced probably in the summer, I would imagine.
Missed the trick with Mamadashvili. I still say that every time. He missed the trick with that.
Yeah. He's a good goalkeeper, and who else then becomes available? That's a different story for another time. But he does worry me, Pope, that he just doesn't look comfortable on his left hand side when he's going to his left.
That's where he had the injuries, though, wasn't it? That was where he had the injuries. That's the worry.
And it's got to have an effect mentally, and maybe it is just a case of he has to get a few games under his belt this season, and he becomes a little bit more confident that he's not going to break down again. But yeah, I think more than anything, I think that's my worry. But you're right, the others coming back. If Willock can stay fit for any length of time,
great asset.
Just that ability to move the ball, to carry the ball forward, and to break lines with it. And we've seen his pace is dangerous running with the ball.
Still a cracking finisher as well. He gets them positions. He very seldom fucks it up, does he? He's a good finisher.
He is, and we've sort of missed that from his game, really, haven't we? Since that back end of the period when he was on loan, and I think he's just been hampered by injuries and playing a different position. I know that was a difference in his sort of his attacking intent. He was asked to do a different role, and it took him a little while to get used to that. But we started to see him that coming to fruition, that work and that ability to work with Joe Linton, particularly down that left-hand side, was phenomenal. So we can see that again. And it's just another option in that midfield again, isn't it? Or in that forward line. And when we talk about squad depth, it's those players that are going to give Newcastle a huge impetus if they can stay fit. Wilson's included in that as well, because Chris, if you can keep him fit, he's a goal every 2 games striker, if not higher. So
Yeah, 15 goal a season striker. It's an interesting comment from Richard there saying, can anyone confirm that when Willock signed for us on loan, didn't Bruce play him right wing where he scored a number of goals? I'm not sure Bruce knew where he played anybody, Richard, to be honest with you. There was times where the players didn't know on the pitch. But I think Willock did play kind of across the three. I think he played in midfield as an attacking midfielder behind the strikers, then he drifted up to the front three, him and Maxi. But he probably played right wing because Maxi wouldn't stand still. So he probably just filled in, probably, naturally, I think, for Maxi. But he did play across the front three, I think. But yeah, I mean, the Willock that we signed was an absolute goal machine. Just couldn't miss. And you don't lose that natural ability to finish. But I think the difference is that Eddie's focused on his overall game. It's made him a better player overall. But we said it before, it's sacrificed the goals. But it'd be interesting to see the goals come back. And we'll see how he gets back in terms of fitness. Tyson, he played right wing twice according to Transfer Market. Yeah, I think sometimes I do question some of their things, to be honest with you. But moving on to the next section, everyone's favourite sporting director, Paul Mitchell, which I'm going to get into here in a minute. So,
by the way, just if anybody can't see it because it'll be quite small if you're watching on your phone or anything, that little icon in there is a wrestling match. It's not two people giving each other a hug.
Yeah. I don't know what else. I thought they were taking a pie out of the oven or something. It was just really hot. So it's just a two-man job, mate. Well done. I love the emojis. But going into this whole thing with Mitchell, so it's interesting. So obviously the transfer window was crap. I've seen boarded up windows look better than that one, and then the big PIF guys came for the game. We won the game, and then all of a sudden Mitchell comes out and suddenly goes, it's time for an interview. And you think to yourself, well, interviews are a good thing. Just try and reassure the fans, that everything's all okay. But it was kind of circulated by so many different media outlets. I did a video on it. We all talked about it. And one of the big things was he came out and said that the transfer structure was not fit for purpose. And one of the aftermaths is this: is Luke Edwards, everyone's favourite wind-up merchant, has wrote apparently Amanda Staveley, Murdoch Gadusi, and Dan Ashworth. Don't give a fuck about that little rat, to be fair, but they were all really perplexed about this, as was Steve Nixon, because it sounds like Mitchell was kind of directly having a go at their ability to sign players and all of the stuff that goes with it. We don't know if he was just singling out Dan Ashworth or whether he was attacking everybody, but I found it quite rich, Mark, for a guy who's done fuck all in the window to attack people who've signed the likes of Bruno Guimaraes and Sven Botman for under 40 million quid. That to me seemed a little bit mad. And I'll let you come in and give your opinion in a minute, because you're always a more level-headed one of the two of us, which is probably safe to say. I'm not sure I trust this bloke. He's giving me very slimy politician vibes, much like the guy above him, old slippery eels. You don't see that fucker dancing on the stack anytime soon, do you? I think he's realised he's shit the bed there and firmly moonwalked the fuck away, I think, from dancing on the stack again. Somebody might throw something at him if he does that again. But for me, I don't want to hear Mitchell blaming everybody else. And I know he's only been here 5 minutes, so I will give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. But, there seemed to be a lot of, kind of hidden agendas within the spiel that he came out with, taking a pop at the previous ownership model, talking about Eddie, praising him, and then saying that he wanted that player, as in Mark Gahey, then saying, we wouldn't stand in his way for the England job. And I just don't think it was the reassuring interview that the fan base wanted. As Phil says there, Mitchell should keep his trap shut and get on with that's what he's paid for. Talk is cheap, Mark. Actions speak louder than words. That's my take on it. I said it in my video. I'm saying it again. What did you think about the whole thing?
Talk is cheap. Look, I think there's an element of the fan base that wants interaction with that level. They want communication at that level, but it has to be the right communication. And just coming out and an interview like that, I think, does more harm than good.
I'd agree.
There is absolutely no point in coming out and throwing the kitchen sink at what's gone on before. And you're right, Joe. Don't blame the people who were here 5 minutes ago. There's no what does it give you? It doesn't win you anything. It makes you look like you something's not gone right, and you're instantly within weeks of being at the club just gone, all right, well, instead of going, yes, things didn't go well, it's, we've got to do better, which is the initial kind of comment you made. You accept that things didn't go right in the window and they need to work on it. I like that. I genuinely take some responsibility. You're the man in charge in that area now, so it's all under you. You can be pissed at what's gone on before, but I don't like the way you come out and say, well, the whole setup, and by all accounts, it's pissed off Amanda Amirdad, Steve Nixon as well. I mean, I couldn't give a flying fuck if it pisses off Dan Ashworth. The guy's a slimy rat. But that period of the club has been and gone. So you just have to get on with it. You take your lumps and you go, yeah, this isn't what we wanted at this point in time in the transfer window, and you move on. I don't like the blame game. I really don't. I just think it's really poor. It's really poor management of the situation to start throwing shade at other people when you're in charge of that situation, and you need to step up.
Yeah.
You may not. You're not there to take complete responsibility for all. The fan base isn't stupid. They know that he's only been there for so many weeks, and it's not going to happen overnight. That process with scouting networks and his black book of players and all that kind of stuff, that will take time to work with Eddie to get that right. But you can't come out and play the blame game in that regard. I just don't like the optics of it at all. It just doesn't look good.
Absolutely. Just before I retort to that one, super chat in from Roblox. Thank you very much for that, mate. Really appreciate that. Tonali Primo Assisto Magnifico Hall 2 assist for days, Roblox. Brilliant. We appreciate that, mate. But yeah, I agree, Mark. I think there's a certain level of class and decorum that you expect from these types of people in football clubs. He's come with a great pedigree. He's worked with big clubs.
Absolutely.
We're all excited about what he can do. And, there's the stories doing the rounds in the Sun, stuff like that, whether they believe that or not, I wouldn't mind me asked that thing, but, saying that he might want to leave already and there's friction between him and Eddie, but I don't know if that's true or not, but it doesn't look good when he comes out and does stuff like that, because it looks like he's trying to protect his own arse and he's blaming other people. And not to mention, these are people that Eddie had a great working relationship with, and Eddie's a very proud man. And if you're already kind of on a little bit of a ropey start with Eddie, where you promised him you'd get him his player and you didn't, for him to wake up and see stories all over the place of you slagging off people who are great to him and great to work with and that he holds in high regard, is not going to make you look good in front of the manager either. So I'm concerned about this dynamic, I must admit. And I mean, don't get me started on Eels. That guy, more and more that I see and hear from him, he sounds like somebody who wouldn't be out of place on The fucking Apprentice or something like that in the boardroom with sugar. I appreciate football as a business now, right? But I don't want it to be 95% business, Darren, and 5% football. I'd rather hear about people who can head the ball, not fucking headroom. So maybe next time you talk to the club, don't just spiel out a bunch of business gobbledygook. I don't think we'll hear from him for a long time, to be honest with you. I don't think he'll be sneaking out on well-renowned Newcastle podcast talkings and saying, hey, everybody, it's me, Darren Eales, because I might go, boo, fuck off, you little twat. You didn't sign anybody, and he'll just jump back through the curtain and fucking leg it to his black car. Same with the Stack as well. It seems to me that there's been more of a focus, I said this before, more of a focus on commercial enhancement than there has player enhancement. And I think they're taking the eye off the ball with this. And I think that's what Eddie's pissed off about, in my opinion, mate.
It does. The other thing as well, and it feels very much like that was Eales pushing Mitchell in front of the camera.
I do agree with that. Yeah.
I want you to do this because I can't, because I've lost.
Very poor.
Well, exactly. And I think he realizes that he's lost a huge chunk of credibility with the fan base.
Oh, yes.
So he has to push some other poor sucker in front of the cameras to take one for the team. And it felt like a very unthought through way to have done it, and he has
crass, wasn't it? It was crass. I felt
it was, and when you had a pop at the network that's there before you, when you have thrown Eddie a little bit under the bus with the whole Mark Gay thing, because
he did do that.
He did blame. It was his play that he wanted. Well, that has to be a conversation that you have between you, and that stays between you. I don't want that aired in public. I don't want my manager or my sporting director, whoever it is, having an argument played out in public where one's blaming the other for the players that they're going for. That's not conducive to a good working relationship. And part of us does worry that Mitchell is a new ownership.
Yeah, man. Effectively. Yeah, he is.
Amanda and Mehrdad and Eddie that's that previous part of the club's recent history, and it does worry me that Mitchell wins in this, and not a power struggle as such with this, but if it comes down to it, Mitchell's got a huge amount of sort of experience in that job with certain managers at a good level. And does that mean that if this continues to go on and there is this little bit of a fight between them, does that mean that Eddie will go? And that's really it is a worry.
But imagine that happens. I mean, the feeling already amongst the large majority of the fan base towards these two in particular that are at the top of the football club, that were telling us things like transformer. I know people have rolled back and said Darren Neal's never said that. I'm pretty sure if you go and search it up, Darren Neal did say that. He threw out loads of these kind of words. But if the fan base are already doubting and questioning their ability to do the job, if the best manager we've had since Bobby Robson walks out the door or is flicked away because he's been seemed to have lost a battle with a guy who's been brought in, for a sporting director, unless that guy then appoints a really good replacement who does not just equal but better what the outgoing manager was, the whole fan base will turn. There's no doubt about that.
I think it will be a massive, a huge black mark on the way that it's been managed. If that does happen, and Eddie is the sacrificial lamb in that, that's a huge body blow to the credibility of the owners at that point. I mean, unless something goes spectacularly wrong, and that's the reason that he goes. But if it is a case of a struggle between the two, and they choose Mitchell over Howe based on that, I think it would be, because you instantly lose a huge chunk of fans that are with you at the moment. They'll give you the benefit of the doubt because of what's gone on over the last 3 years, because the club's been transformed from where it was under Ashley. But they've got to be sensible about it and not start just forgetting who the club actually, they may own it, but who the club really belongs to. Because it really, with any football club, it belongs to the fans. They may have the shares, they may have the money in it. But at the end of the day, and I know it's a cliche, but owners come and go, managers come and go, players come and go. Who's there permanently? It's the fans. They're the ones that own it, really. So they've got to be really careful and not pissing that level, that amount of fans that are maybe is on the fence a little bit, and the ones that aren't a little bit
not that fence, just on
they've got to be careful. They really do.
I agree. I mean, imagine a kind of series of events where Eddie goes, a new manager comes in, we're not doing very well, and then they go, oh, by the way, we're leaving St James's Park with this shiny new stadium as well. I mean, that's a lot for this fan base to swallow in one sitting. Comment there from Johnny Ola, very interesting about Leicester, actually. Liquor paint, few new machines, training ground. Leicester spent over 100 million, 3 years gone. Big shout out to Leicester for fucking sticking into the Premier League. I must admit, that was a victory for the clubs everywhere, and I hope it's a start of things to come where clubs fight back against the Premier League. But yeah, I mean, it just seems to be, everything seems to have slowed in terms of the momentum here, Mark. And you can blame PSR and you can blame FFP and all that stuff. But, when Newcastle United are posting they've made £6.5 million profit, we've lost two very exciting young players. We've still got some shit in the squad that no fucker seems to want, in the shame of Isaac Hayden. Bless him, did all right for us in the past, but he's totally surplus to crimes now. I mean, fucking hell, we had to send Jamal Lewis off to bloody Brazil because no fucker wanted him. You know, I don't know whether they've got him mixed up and they think he's Trent Alexander-Arnold, or some of them just haven't read his name properly and they think they've got a hell of a player on their hands. But, you know, to be sitting there with no signings in and £6 million in profit, you know, are these like patting themselves in the back thinking they've done a good job? I just don't know, you know.
I don't think so. I don't think they can, and I think they recognise that it's been a bit of a fuck up this window.
I agree with Roadblock there. I think they are keeping their powder dry for the City thing.
You said that a couple of times, and look, I hate the fact that you can. It's the only business in the world where an owner can't transform the club or the business where they want to. You know, we've talked about this before. If you own a gym and you've got broken equipment and you've got old equipment, you go out and replace it. You're not stopped from replacing it if you've got the money for it, for example. So you've got $1 million in the bank, you go out and buy a few more treadmills or whatever, or replace the kit. You're not getting stopped from doing that because there's some fucking restriction on you being able to actually spend your own money on your business to keep it going. PSR, as we've said before, is there to protect that cartel. It's to stop people being able to get in the way of it. I kind of understand that it's there to protect clubs from themselves as well, not going over the top with it. But we come back to the argument that clubs should then, or the owners should then, be putting together money to keep the club running. Should
Even Neville said that.
Go wrong.
Yeah,
absolutely
Neville
right.
said that. To be fair, and he's right as well. But yeah, the proof of the pudding will definitely be in the eating with a football club, and I think there's a little bit of a trust that's, I wouldn't say it's lost, but I think it's damaged, and I think they need to build that back up. And you know, if Eddie keeps winning games and the lads, you know, put the performances in, the January window, no matter what, it needs to be a good window for these lot. It really, really does. And I think if it's a bad window, yeah, it won't look particularly good. But listen, we've depressed you all enough. It's time to lighten the mood a little bit. It's time for Out of Toon. We didn't think we'd be on this long, actually. We thought this would be a shorter one. But yeah, it's time where we talk about non-Newcastle related situations, but maybe a little tinge of Newcastle United in here. So are you ready, Mark? Are you ready for the bulletin?
Sly grin. I know what's coming with this.
It's time. You know what's coming. It's time. It's time. Come on, don't leave me hanging. Come on, click the button. It's time. You know, it's time for some breaking bacon. The man himself, the master of mediocrity, the Baron of Bacon, is back. And not only is he back, he's by the fucking seaside, which is good because that's where donkeys earn a living, and that's where this silly fucker will now be earning a living going forward. So I hope for Blackpool fans that he vastly improves on his last two win ratios of a dizzying height of 25%, 28% in Newcastle and West Brom collectively. But I'll tell you a really interesting stat about this, Mark, before we get on about how Steve will transform Blackpool. So, you know, the best manager of over 1,000 games experience, a great family man, as he was once called, by himself. So he's in League One, and a really interesting stat about League One. I'm just looking at it now, right? So he has taken over Blackpool, who are sitting in 22nd at the minute with 2 points. Now, that is one of 4 teams in this fucking league that Steve Bruce has managed. This is like a hall of shame of Steve Bruce's failures. So Birmingham City are in here, Huddersfield are in here, Wigan Athletic are in here, and now he's managing Blackpool. I mean, if that's not a true measure of just how fucking shit this guy is as a manager, all of these teams are in League One, I don't know what is, mate. I really don't.
I feel so sorry for that. I did mock this up as well as the Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I mean, we've been waiting for this, haven't we? We've been waiting for who would pull the trigger and go from, but
that's a good one. Well, you know, it's a really great place, Blackpool, lovely beaches. I'm off for a nice toffee apple and a doner kebab. Well, you know. There you go, Trevor. Probably better than the other guy who makes way more money than I do. I would do licks the side of his face for some reason with a Bruce impression. I don't know why. But yeah, I mean, I'm. Do you know what? I'm generally worried for Steve Bruce, and I mean this in serious. This is me worried about the safety of another human being. No matter how shit he is as a manager, no matter how much he accused myself and my fellow Newcastle fans of hyperbole, you know, and histrionics, I'm really worried, Mark, because if someone throws a cabbage at you, right, it's not going to hurt too much, right? if someone calls you a wanker at St James's Park, it's not going to hurt so much. If somebody throws one of them stick of rock cock and balls at his forehead in 6 months' time, when Blackpool haven't won a game, I mean that's concussion territory, mate. He's in big trouble here. I'm worried about Brucey. I really am.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you heard that his interview was it today where he's talking about he's gone into this group of players and he thinks they can be attractive football and that's what he really wants to do, but he's had to just his remit for years has just been to survive. Give over, man. We've heard it so many times in every club he's been at that give it up, but I do fear for them because I think it just they will quickly see what he's like. They might get a burst, and we know that he's done good things at lower levels before. It was 20 years ago. He hasn't done anything good for 15 years since he was at Birmingham. For fuck's sake! I mean, just honestly.
Listen. If he's that shit, right? If he's lucky, he might be able to disappear off and try and get a gig on Strictly for the year after when they're at the Tower. Just take once he's been beat 4-0, just lads, get the bus back and I'll see you back at the ground, and just have a little tiptoe up the Blackpool Tower and have a word and see whether he can get on Strictly possibly. Mate.
I think it's more likely somebody drops him off the end of the pier. To be honest with you.
More than likely, mate. More than likely, but yeah, that was quite humorous. I didn't make us giggle. So speaking with the reoccurring trend with former Manchester United players, Roy Keane was on great form in the post-match and pre-match punditry on ITV for the England and Ireland game. Now, we can talk about it because it's kind of covered up a little bit with the subscriber thing. But he was talking about the FIA or the FAI, whatever you call them, the Football Association of Ireland. And he basically said there's some good people there, but they're making decisions. But they probably couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery, and it was so quick that ITV couldn't actually bleep it out or anything like that. And Ian Wright just started smirking, as right he does. And then the commentator the interviewer or the main guy was just a little bit bowled over. He didn't really know what to do, did he, mate? Really? So.
You've got to like the fact that he just says what he thinks at that point, and even
I love it,
tempered that. But yeah, just
I know he's a former Mackham manager and he wanks his dog, but I love him as a pundit. He's fucking brilliant. He's absolutely fucking brilliant. I tell you what wasn't brilliant though, fucking wankers that do shit like this. This pitch invader guy who come onto the pitch. Look at Anthony Gordon and Trent looking at him. They're probably wondering where the fuck did you spend pre-season, mate? Because he's about 4 stone overweight compared to the rest of the players. But I think this guy is a professional comedian, YouTuber, and professional prankster is what he calls. I'd probably say he's a professional wanker, reading that kind of synopsis, really, mate. That he's making a career for himself just by basically acting like a twat. But I think you did a bit of research on him. He's done this a few times, hasn't he, this guy?
Yeah, so he's banned from every sporting event in England and Wales so far because he managed to he invaded the pitch on an England cricket match and ran into Johnny Bairstow, I think it was. So he's been banned from there. He managed to get into the closing ceremony, the Olympics. He's done all sorts. I think he got onto, was it when South Africa won the Rugby World Cup and he was stood with the team and stuff like that. He's done it all sorts. But look, I mean, he wants banned from every sporting event in the world because it's just dickish behaviour, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I won't drop the C-bomb on here because I don't want YouTube to take us off. But as Bronn once said in Game of Thrones, there is no cure for being a see you next Tuesday, as you know, mate. And that bloke is firmly one of them. There's no doubt about that. I've got no time for that shit at all. I tell you what was quite funny though, with regards to the Ireland-England game. So obviously there was a bit of controversy around a couple of England players, Declan Rice. And Jack Grealish. Now, this came up before. This was a flashback. The internet never forgets where the Irish said they took our potatoes, but they won't take our rice. Fast forward to Declan Rice, obviously scoring the goal. Didn't celebrate. I'll come back to that in a second. But this is the reason why they were pissed off, because there's Declan Rice and Jack Grealish, obviously back in the previous guys in Ireland shirts. I think they need to let it go a little bit, really, mate, to be honest with you. We'll get onto that in a minute. But the Declan Rice bit, he got a bit of shit for not celebrating, and people said it was ridiculous. Now, his reasoning for it, I thought, was actually quite noble. that, his grandparents, I think he said, were Irish and they're no longer here, and he didn't think it felt right. Cue to Jack Grealish not giving two fucks whatsoever and just celebrating like a madman, which is just typical Jack Grealish. But obviously it's funny, Mark. But do you think the Irish need to let it go a little bit and not get so wound up with us? We'll call them snakes and everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's the fun of a football fan, isn't it, to do that to players returning. I sort of get Declan's a little bit more on the fact that he actually played games, and that's a different story, because I don't believe that you should be able to switch allegiances like that. If you've played international football at that level, you should not be allowed to play for another national side, but that's my own view. Grealish played for the under-21s and below, so I think that's fair enough. Fuck it, enjoy it. You've scored a goal for your country, go and celebrate. I don't care who you're playing against, you go and celebrate it.
Yeah, I understand that. I think the thing with Declan Rice is he's trying to be everybody's favourite kind of player, really. I think he's very conscientious of how he behaves, and I do sometimes want him to go full shit house and just celebrate. But I must admit, I mean, George agrees. You make your bed and you lie in it. Absolutely, no doubt at all. But going back to some of the stories that we had for Out of Toon. So speaking of England, we'll keep it England. Two former England strikers. One of them, who has most definitely been enjoying retirement, Wayne Rooney, as you can see there on the left. He has not got a ball up his stomach there. I think that is actually his kite, to be fair to Wazza. Now, Wazza was pictured recently singing karaoke in Plymouth. I don't think he was singing I Will Survive, because I don't think he will in the job, given the fact he's been shit as of late. But people decided to put this picture on social media, which is a little bit harsh, because Ronaldo was a bit of a freak. Well, more Ronaldo in a minute. But so Ronaldo's 39 years old, and we know what Ronaldo's built like. And Rooney's 38-year-old, and he's now built like a site foreman for a fucking building developer company, really, who has 8 pints every Friday night. But he still hasn't lost it, Mark. He scored a blinding free kick, didn't he, in the testimonial game against Celtic. You never lose that quality, mate, do you?
What a strike that was! I mean, fair play to the lad. He can barely run, but he can still hit a ball. That was phenomenal.
Oh, brilliant.
I think it's funny, isn't it? Because I was talking to a lad at work today who's a Man U fan. He said, we always knew, with the way that Rooney was built anyway, that the end of his career would come when
still waiting to happen.
When he stopped playing, he stopped training. That was always going to happen. But you never lose it, really, do you? And the ability he has in his feet is still there.
He's still brilliant. Do you know, I remember talking about, fat lads waiting to break out. Obviously Sammy Nasri's a fat lad now. Wesley Sneijder's a fat lad. You didn't think they were fat lads when they played, but they are fat lads now. I always thought Kevin Nolan would have been fucking huge. Like Ben Stiller in the end of Dodgeball, when he's just fucking massive on the sofa, like just eating fucking crisps by the boatload. I always thought Kevin Nolan would go that way, but he's not. He's still in good shape as Kevin Nolan, to be fair. So big respect to Super Kev, Special K. Another former England striker who's still in good shape and enjoying his time in France, apparently, is Andy Carroll. So Andy Carroll is playing over, is it Amiens, I think it is? And he says, I can go to a bakery and I can buy a pan au chocolat without anybody.
He's been there.
Yeah, anybody see exactly. We love a pan au chocolat, Andy. Anybody saying to me, how was the match? Can I have a photo? I feel like I'm normal. I just want to go out and be free, be me. Here I can take my children to the zoo and they don't come and say, Dad, why are people asking for photos or autographs? Maybe they thought you were a giraffe, Andy, potentially, because you're that fucking tall. There's a little pub around the corner where I went the other day with boys to watch a PSG game. What a game. Nobody said anything to me. Living the dream. Now, that's a real change from when Andy Carroll used to play for Newcastle, Mark, go to the pub, drink 16 Jaeger bombs, fall off his stool and get into a fight. So I don't know whether he's just mellowed in his old age. Do you think, mate?
I think France may have changed him slightly, definitely. But yeah, I guess it's got to be nice at that point to be in a place where you're not instantly recognised, and you can live a little bit more of a normal life, I guess, and not have that kind of intrusion in things. But yeah, I mean, he did enough to warrant getting that intrusion when he was here, didn't he?
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting. I just think it's probably more the French don't have a fucking clue who he is, to be fair. They probably just think he's a guy who parked a caravan up on the grass somewhere. They don't think he's a footballer at all. But yeah, speaking of another former England superstar, so some sad news for the Beckhams recently, Mark, is that young Romeo Beckham has decided to retire. Young millionaire family, inherited. Romeo Beckham has decided to retire from football at the tender age of 22. He's decided to end his football career and pursue a career in fashion, having already signed a contract with a modelling agency. Now, when I first saw this, being the incredible cynic that I am, text you, Mark, said, is it not just because he's a bit shit? Is that not the real case why he's retired, really, mate, as opposed to not liking football?
Yeah, I'm not sure he was ever going to really hit the same notes as his dad, nor his mum, for that matter. If he's hitting
what notes did she hit? I don't think she could.
Jesus Christ,
with a lot of could she, mate? So
slightly garbled ones, I think. But yeah, I mean, he's not going to be short of a couple of quid even if he doesn't work for the rest of us, like, is he? So, I mean, that's.
I'm devastated there, mate. Breaking news, sort of cut across you. Robert's just said R.I.P. Darth Vader, James Earl Jones. Mate.
I'm gutted. I love James Earl Jones.
Livid, mate. What a voice, man. What a voice. Imagine James Earl Jones doing a podcast now, man. He would have fucking been amazing, wouldn't he? He could have said anything. He could have just been talking about rubber ducks on a fucking Spotify podcast. And anybody would have listened to that. Oh, I'm devastated by that, man. Absolutely devastated. Oh, rest in peace, James Earl Jones. I mean, 93 is a good fucking innings, though, isn't it, to be fair? I mean, if I get anywhere close to that on the crease, mate, I'll consider myself a look, man. That's the only cricket reference you'll ever get off me, by the way. I fucking hate cricket, and you know I do. But yeah, what a real shame for James Earl Jones. Yeah,
definitely. I love James Earl Jones. I think he's a phenomenal actor. And I mean, he was part of two of my favorite films in Star Wars and The Hunt for Red October as well, which is my favorite novel.
Coming to America, mate. Throw that in there.
Hang on. I was going to say, yeah, and then you throw in the likes of Coming to America, and he was obviously in Lion King, and his little bit that he did in The Big Bang Theory was absolutely hilarious as well. So I'm gutted. I really am.
Yeah. When you miss Field of Dreams as well, Robert says, fucking hell, God,
Christ.
Oh, Jesus. When you were going to leave Coming to America off your mind, I was just in that barbershop now going, you must be out of your goddamn mind. I was getting right into that there for a minute, maybe. But yeah, that's really sad news, man. Really sad news. It is. So I tell you what is also sad news, just to pull it back to Out of Toon, guys. I love a segue, even in the face of tragedy. What's not good is Everton's new stadium, by the looks of it, because they posted this on social media and cue the internet wizards making it look like a Tesco extra. And it really does look like a big fucking Tesco, doesn't it, really, to be fair? I mean, that's not good. I mean, to be fair, there'll be more points in the Tesco than there'll be in that fucking stadium, I guarantee you, in the next season or two, mate, because they are going down quicker than the fucking Hunt for Red October, mate.
Scan your club card as you go in. Yeah, definitely. It was the comment underneath, and that I see them pop up an awful lot on X. It's not me. Really. It is ugly as hell. That isn't it? It's not a nice looking stadium.
Shit, I'm just thinking about when Dominic Calvert-Lewin skies it and ends up in the water. Who's getting that back? You know what I mean? I feel sorry for the ball boys of the game. They have to have scuba gear to get it back in that one.
I like that. Unquestionably the best Premier League stadium in the Premier League next season. I mean, that's optimism.
Is it though? Is it though?
I think best stadium in the Championship, perhaps.
Well, I don't even know if it would be the best stadium in the Championship. To be honest,
what happened the last time a club associated with being Mackems opened a new stadium? Where did they open that one?
Very, very true, mate. Very, very true. But I tell you, well, that stadium might not be the greatest, but speaking of arguably the greatest, these two, there's no doubt. I think we've been very lucky to have seen these two play in the era that they have, and do what they've done and won the Ballon d'Or as much as they have. But the Ballon d'Or nominations came out the other day, and it's the first time, I think, in 21 years that there's no Messi and no Ronaldo. I mean, has the torch officially been passed, mate?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to have lived in an era where you've seen both of them as good as they have been. It's rare you get two at that level at the same time, and they've just been incredible. And maybe we've got that again, I guess, with Haaland and Mbappe. But it's kind of a strange one, isn't it? Because they've been such a huge part of world football for so long, and all of a sudden, that's it. It's really come to an end. As much as Ronaldo says he's probably going to play for another couple of years, not in that league. We don't care really, do we? So.
Well, I mean, the Ivan Toney one. I mean, we haven't thrown Ivan Toney in here as a pitcher, but we'll throw him in just as a topic to finish up with. So Ivan Toney, obviously, I think is on. He's gone from something like 40 grand a week to 500 grand a week with goal bonuses. Could be £1 million a week. And there was a picture of him at a party. I know it's ridiculous, Ivan Toney. There's a picture of him at a party where he was obviously having a bit of a send off, I think, and he said the flights are on me, and they were all having a good old giggle with it. And for me. A massive respect for Ronald Koeman for basically saying they're one of his players in the Dutch squad. That's you done with the Dutch squad. If you're playing that league, you're done. For me, Tony would be the same for England and me. I just think he would be done. I'd just say no. You're playing in a Mickey Mouse league, not very competitive. I can't consider you for the England squad. But I think he'll be back in the next 2 years, mate, in the Premier League. I'll be shocked if he's not. He'll line his pockets and come back.
And I think that's what quite a few will do. They'll go for a season. They'll go for maximum of 2, and then they'll be back because they'll want to play at the highest level, and that's just not there, and it won't be there for a while. And if they continue to bankroll it, maybe in a few years' time. But there's an awful lot of those players that have gone are at the very back end of their career, and they're not going to stick around for that. They've gone for a huge payday before they retire.
Yeah, Tony's in his prime, and he's just to go there is just. I think it says a lot about the player, to be honest with you. And especially after Brentford stood by him for as long as they did, through that situation. I think it's really disrespectful, and it's not nice.
It's a weird thing because the Koeman thing I kind of get with Steven Bergwijn, wasn't it, where he's dropped him from the squad for playing over there. I mean, there is an element of you playing in a really shit standard of football, and what can you do? But then N'Golo Kante is playing across there and was one of the best players in the Euros. Thank you, Brian. So there are caveats to that, but I just think you're not testing yourself at the highest level. And certainly as a centre forward, you're not playing against the better defenders in Europe, in the Premier League, and you can't then really, can you be trusted to throw into the England side at a tournament or in qualification? I don't think so, and I wouldn't have him close to the squad either.
No, well, what are the odds he'll be back in a couple of years? Pretty good, I bet. Sorry, I couldn't resist it. That's fucking terrible. Great way to end on a pun joke as well. That's us done for this week, guys. Thank you so much, everybody, in the comments, as always. It always helps the episode flow. It always helps us keep on track and then go off track as well, because that's what we love about the Monday show. It's very unscripted, off the rails completely. James Earl Jones passed away. Don't worry about that, Robert. We love a bit of that on the show. Obviously not the tragedy, just
no.
Yeah, but my God, that's a terrible thing to say. Anything is on the agenda for Evermore, really, on Monday nights, guys. So whatever you want to tell us in the chat, we'll pull them up and we'll talk about it. If you take the time to type a comment, we'll take the time to talk about it. Unless you're just being a bit nasty, then we won't talk about it at all. But never mind, we'll move on for that. Just before we go as well, massive congrats to anybody who did the Great North Run, by the way.
Yes.
We're all about that. So well done. You're all fucking awesome. It's an amazing event. Me and Mark have both done it before in the past. We love it. And congratulations to you all. You're all fucking legends. So that's us done for this week of What's Going On. We'll be back with the match preview this week, Mark, as well. And then we'll have the post-match for the Wolves game at the weekend. So keep it Evermore, guys. Smash that subscribe button. Send us to all your family and friends and say, look at these guys. They're fucking great. Get them to 9,000 subscribers. And I'm going to win a retro shirt. That's what you do. Have a cracking evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are in the world, everybody. See you later.
See you guys. Cheers.